So back to working with our handsome Mr. F. I just wanted to grab a few other snacks for him. So I noticed the snacks that you guys brought from home were like his kibble and then a little bit with some treats, but they were like crunchy, sort of like milk bone treats. I would recommend to, if you can, bring some meatier or sort of softer treats that are easy to break up. That was a beautiful shake off. So right now I know we were trying to work a little bit with some of that Find It, where we take a snack and we toss it and we have them go search for it. So the reason we want to warm up with some of those Find It's, we'll get back to the treats in a moment, is that we want him to start thinking that sometimes movement can make him feel less sort of stuck or overwhelmed. So I know you mentioned that with a lot of family or friends, he tends to jump. So obviously that could be the stress of the new setup, the excitement. So right now what I'm doing is I'm meandering, and anytime Mr. Handsome comes to check in on me, I would feed him by tossing the food. So you can of course feed him for also being stationary. So now he's getting much more comfortable. Ready? Find it. And he's getting better with the Find It. I'm almost thinking his hair is actually in his face a little bit, and he doesn't see where the Find It's are rolling when I toss them. So I'm going to try a little harder to put it right to his little sniffer and then get his attention and then go into a little Find It. So again, the reason I was asking for softer, more delectable snacks is that remember that all the weird stuff we're doing in here is very much so like work for them. And even though we like to at times volunteer our services or help out pro bono, a lot of times we're expecting a paycheck for all the hard efforts we're doing. So view your babe as a furry little exchange student who doesn't understand or understand what's expected of him verbally, culturally, or physically. So to get Mr. Handsome, Mr. F, to start to want to participate in some of these weird skills that we're asking of him, and don't worry, if he has a potty, it's not the end of the world. This was a doggy daycare for almost 10 years before I moved in. So right there with a little kissy noise, I'm going to feed him for that though, because that was my little positive interrupter to regain his attention from the environment. I see he does have a really nice little sit, which is great. Remember though, if we're trying to create value in all these different behaviors, we want to have a paycheck that from his perspective, he deems well enough of a paycheck for the efforts or the work he's doing. If, for example, he is getting sort of nonchalant snacks, he may find that the effort in changing old behavior or skills may not be worth it. So remember, view your food as like the tier to, for example, there's different values in our money as well. So training treats or crunchy treats or kibble could be more at the lower end, especially if they're not as moist and sort of smelly. The softer, more snacks that are easy to rip up into smaller pieces, they tend to be a lot more enjoyable for the babe because it's a lot more stinky and more, for them, higher value. So I sometimes like to have a variety. So if let's say my dog is doing something they find really difficult, I want to make sure that the value of that paycheck is equivalent of the hard effort they're giving me. So remember, nobody goes into work, works a 40-hour work week, and then has your boss come over and say, wow, what a great job you did. Here's a high five. You'd be like, where's the paycheck? So the moment he goes to jump, I'm just going to ignore the handsome guy. It's his first day here. He doesn't know where he's at. So there's a lot of novelty. So I might try the kissy noise right there. Yes. So even if in the beginning we're warming up with positive interrupters, which are that little kissy noise, bringing him back from a distraction or odor or sight or sound, and then he comes into my bubble, I would feed him for any of this orientation back to me. So the reason this is such a great behavior is behavior builds. So like this could be the beginning stages of loose leash walking, coming when called, which I know recall is something you wanted to work on. So right there, I'm just going to kiss, get that little handsome man to come check in. Good job, sir. So remember, for his very first day, I think he's doing quite well. So, but the first day does come down to getting comfortable in the environment, getting to know what the routine is going to be like when we come here. So normally when they first come in, they kind of come in, I get them in their little bubbles, they have restroom breaks, and then they go back to little old zones and we work a few of the babes while some of them are nearby but with a fence. Others might be in a calmer little section if they do a little bit better in a softer bubble. So I set them all up so they can have their own little moments to practice throughout the day. And then of course we set up time to film some of their practice as well. So right there, yes, what a good boy. So with Mr. Handsome, Mr. F, every time he does this great little check-in with his name, or for example, with the kissy noise, I want to feed him for those moments. So nice job. I'm going to also capture like his beautiful sitting position that he can sometimes give me. So, but I want him to go ahead and try a little bit when we find it, and then feed him for checking in. So the benefit of this is, let's say, company was coming over and he normally gets really excited. You could start doing some find it's with him, and that way company can get some of the energy from him diffused onto the environment instead of them being the target. Nice job, ready, find it. So he's now starting to understand the game a little bit better. Before, when I tossed it, nice job, ready, find it, he wouldn't know to go search for the food. He'd kind of look at me and be like, where'd it go? So for right now, beautiful. We might get that little sit. Nice. So for his first day, warming up with some of these little find it's, ready, and that little positive interrupter. So sometimes he gets it, sometimes he's still working it. Two, there are at times noises from the building. There's other businesses that have machinery and clinking noises and trucks backing up and moving. So this is very nice. So him getting comfortable with all the noises that I don't really pick up as much as he does is another part of the scenario. Remember too that if sometimes he's not doing as well, remember there could be trigger stacking going on. So there's all this novelty. He's been dropped off. He's away from his family. He, for example, doesn't always understand what's going on. And it could be one little event after another. And then something as simple as like the noise of my neighbor might throw him into a barking woo-woo moment. So trigger stacking. So right here, he hears the airplane and he's like, what the heck is that? So we might find that, just like with us, we could wake up and we're rushing to work because we slept in. Then our way there, we have car trouble. And then when we get to work, our boss doesn't get so nice with us about the fact that we were late. And then maybe your computer doesn't work well. So in that sort of scenario, your day is kind of shot. It's just been a cruddy day. And then from there, you might have a harder time being the friendlier person that you might be typically. And it doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means that at that point in that day, you might be kind of done and your capacity for more difficulty just may not be there. So there will be times that we have to take in consideration, what are we dealing with in our dog's environment? And then how could we either help them, or by accident, how are we by mistake setting them up to fail? So when in doubt, use management, which could be baby gates, corrals, your leash inside the home with his harness on. You may also want to use management and some enrichment together. So what I mean by that is you could have lick mats or frozen Kongs, or for example, like the bully sticks. I know you sent him with some bully sticks, but he's been a little bit too apprehensive to chew on them today. I would still recommend to bring them for Thursday. Yes. Because as the weeks progress, he's probably going to get much more comfortable, because as I mentioned, the other students have done this a few times. Some are not novel to this at all, and then others are not quite as fluid, but this is his very first day in the program. So his first rodeo, I'd say he's doing quite well. So again, from the distraction of the environment, him off doing something else, I'm going to get that lovely kissy noise. Yes. So I would also make sure to mark behavior or skills as he's offering them. So sometimes a YES, so my yes, is when I let my dog know exactly what you just did is why you got the paycheck. For a lot of dogs, that can help them start to really grasp, why did I just get this reinforcement? And that was the reason behind it, so I want to offer that behavior again. But back to helping him in certain bubbles, management, so preventing something from going in the wrong direction by creating an environment that is conducive to him being successful. So that could have been baby gates, corrals. So right there, he noticed his little roommate, his other pup, off in the distance. He did a little woo, like, who are you? But then from there, I was able to bounce him back. So even though right now we're just using the positive interrupter, I'm getting Mr. F to realize that checking in with me has value compared to going and getting stuck on something in the environment. If, for example, also giving him some enrichment, so some of those products like the lick mat, the bully stick, a chew, as things are happening, can give him an out, almost like I would with my little human. Here's a coloring book, well, I have to go talk to the teller. Or here's a lolly or a snack for a few minutes while I'm sort of chatting and working on something that I have to pay attention with. So there could be moments where you can pacify his time by giving him something to work on other than you or that target thing. Nice job, sir. So, but the fact that he's taking snacks, beautiful, right there, I'd go, yes, and capture that moment and feed for these sort of very nice little tidbits he's offering. But I am using part of his kibble, and that's typically what is being left on the floor. So remember, if the difficulty of the environment is so strenuous, he might find that kibble is like pennies on the hour when he was expecting a nice big heftier paycheck. So this doesn't mean that you're going to be feeding your pups until they become roly-poly with legs. But what I would recommend is take different varieties and test them out at home. If you're worried about tummy upset, I would highly recommend, use proteins that he can handle, like chicken or turkey. Some babes really love all different types, so some prefer like beef. But I would recommend something that's not super greasy or fatty, because that leads to tummy upset and potentially pancreatitis. So right now he's a little distracted by the environment. I'm going to go, Finley. Yes. Nice job. So his bounce back from the bubble, really nice for his first day. Some pups, when they first come in, they're like, can't really think. This is a little bit more than they were hoping for their very first day. But remember, I'm going to always break it down into steps that are attainable for your babe, depending on where they're starting. So don't compare him to some of the other classmates, because remember, everybody's babe, and he's like, I don't find that, find it. So right here to a sniffer, find it, and then right there, much better. So, but everybody's pups are starting at a different place. So we're dealing with different genetics, different life experiences, different positive or negative experiences or lack thereof. So I know he did take a couple puppy classes elsewhere, and he did a couple other things, which is great. But sometimes if we don't maintain it, just like with us, you don't use it, you lose it sometimes. So it could be one of those things where his abilities may not be quite as refined, because he's also going through different life stages. And now he's going from puppyhood, and he's now an adolescent, which there's a few puppies in here that are. So right here, little woo, I'm gonna get his attention, get him just to do a little check-in. So, but remember, dogs will do dog things, yes, but maybe we can help them if they're really finding something challenging, or it's becoming compulsive or almost OCD-like, so we can make sure he's going in the right direction. So right now he's noticed his little neighbor. I might go again, Finley. And if, let's say, there's no response from Mr. Finley, I'm gonna get a little closer. Finley, nice, right there, yes. So he's just a little bit unsure. So he's given some of those little woo-woos. He's just not sure about what to do yet. So, but I'm just going to help him by finding these find-its instead more attainable than being unsure about his little neighbor. Ready? Find it. Nice job. So, but we're going to give Mr. Finley a little breather, and then we're going to work a few more skills with him in just a second. So this was really pretty.